Hey guys, my name is WyrmsEye and I welcome you back to another episode of the Battlespot Factory, our VGC Battlespot series. So, I'm recording this straight after the episode that you've seen on Tuesday, going out for Thursday. And I've got to say, it's because of work commitments, unfortunately. I'm going to be too busy to be able to record the episode on the day as I would like to. So we're just going to jump straight onto the ladder with this team featuring League Provost's Driftblim Lele squad that he featured on his own YouTube channel on the School of Hard Knocks. So do check out those videos. I will leave a link in the description below to his channel, and you can find the videos to this team here. The squad of Snorlax, Celesteela, Tapu Lele, Driftblim, Garchomp and Arcanine. So if you didn't see the episode on Tuesday, do check it out. Very long episode for just a single game. But we did get very lucky at the end, so hopefully we can find a couple of opponents and get some cleaner wins. So we're starting off with this team of Vikavolt, Alola Ninetales, Nihilego, Mimikyu, Buzzwole and Arcanine. And this was an opponent, I think, at 1648. So relatively similar position on the ladder to us. A couple of interesting Pokemon here. Obviously we don't see a lot of the Buzzwole. It's very rarely seen on teams because it's kind of sits in a weird speed bracket. But also the Vikavolt is a very unusual Pokemon to see. It's a Bug Electric type with the Levitate ability, so it does sort of combat Garchomp Earthquake spam. But another thing that I'm slightly concerned about is the Alola Ninetales. And actually the Mimikyu as well. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead Driftblim and Tapu Lele here. I'm slightly concerned about bringing in Snorlax, but I think it's going to be a necessary evil. Garchomp we don't want because of the Ninetales. I think even though we got the Assault Vest on it, it's not going to be as useful for us. And we could have brought the Celesteela to combat the Ninetales, but I think it also gets heavily threatened by the Arcanine. The Buzzwole will still do quite a lot of damage to it. We could combat that with Flamethrower, but I think Snorlax, if we can get it to work early, we should be in a decent position. As we see our opponent lead with Nihilego and Vikavolt. We actually see that the Nihilego floats in the air with the air balloon. So there's two big pieces of information there that I really enjoy. The fact that it's got the air balloon on it, which means that it's trying to negate ground spam, means that the Nihilego isn't carrying the Focus Sash, which is self-explanatory, but it most likely does not carry Trick Room. So I am going to take an educated risk here, and I am going to go straight for the Tailwind with the Driftblim and just protect with the Tapu Lele. As we do see that Nihilego opts to protect here, so actually more threatened from our Tapu Lele than it is normally. We will get the Tailwind up. It'll be interesting to see whether the Vikavolt can actually knock out the Driftblim. Looks like it's going for it. It is the Electrium Z, so we will be seeing the Gigavolt Havoc. So actually targeting the Tapu Lele down, interesting choice of move. Doing reasonable damage. My opponent didn't have a Dark type. Does have the Mimikyu though, which is something that I will have to bear in mind. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Shadow Ball into the Vikavolt I don't need to Shattered Psyche into the Nihilego. I imagine that it's probably going to switch out in favour of maybe the Mimikyu. Actually not choosing to switch out at all, which is very interesting. We get a critical hit on the Vikavolt. Does well over half. Psychic will take out this Nihilego. Air Balloon pops, but really the knockout is all we're interested in. We do see a Volt switch actually from the Vikavolt into the Tapu Lele. So deciding to switch out rather than do a hard switch. So it'll be interesting to see what my opponent decides to bring out for his next couple of Pokemon. We actually see the Mimikyu and what will be my opponent's last. And just a return of the Vikavolt here. Okay, so what was my opponent's team? What was the other slowest thing on his side? The only thing I'm really afraid of is the Buzzwole. So unless this Mimikyu decides to protect, I am just going to double into the Mimikyu with a Shadow Ball and the Shattered Psyche. We don't see any protect here, so we will get this Shadow Ball and Shattered Psyche off. So unless the Mimikyu is actually Focus Sash, which is potentially possible. The Vikavolt is going to get an attack off. Not sure quite what at this moment, but if the Mimikyu is sashed, that is going to be a problem because Trick Room will go up. But it is not sashed, so we do secure the knockout there. Vikavolt just goes for Thunderbolt once again into the Tapu Lele, so that will feint here. And we're still in a very commanding position here. Drifblim has survived without taking any punishment at all, so let's just see what our opponent's last is. It is the Buzzwole. Nice. It's brilliant to see because now my next play is to just Will-O-Wisp into the Buzzwole, neuter its offensive presence, and I am just going to go straight for the Flare Blitz into the Vikavolt, secure that knockout. Tailwind would expire, but my opponent there forfeiting, so good game to my opponent. She wasn't really able to deal with the Tailwind setup. Once that had gone up, we were basically home clear. We also removed the Mimikyu at the first opportunity we had to stop her from getting any Trick Room up, which was very useful. And then when it came down to a 4v3, basically, Arcanine was on the field that threatened both bug types that she had on the field. And even if the Tailwind subsided, we would be able to get it up again freely the next turn, assuming that the Drifblim lived through that, survived through that final turn of Tailwind. But with the Will-O-Wisp and the Flare Blitz going off, we basically had it down on lock. So, didn't actually mean to save that battle. So a very quick battle, much at odds from the game that we had yesterday. So we will find a second opponent for today. As you can see, we are starting to climb up the ladder. Let's go League Title Defense. I actually love this track. So yes, this team from Osiris does have some very interesting quirks to it. I won't obviously go into too much detail because he's obviously covered it, hopefully in some manner in a team review episode. Do keep an eye out for that. I don't think it had released at the time that I've recorded this, but some of the spreads will be of interest to you because they do highlight some very interesting ways of thinking about the metagame. But we have found our second opponent, Matthew, with a rating of 1612 from Italy, I believe. Gigalith, Kartana, Arcanine, Tapu Lele, Porygon 2 and Gastrodon. So right away there's a very heavy Trick Room option with the Gigalith and Gastrodon, and Snorlax, while it's going to be able to deal with the Gastrodon pretty well, it doesn't particularly enjoy dealing with Gigaliths too much. With this in mind, I do need to think about taking Kartana here because it's going to be very useful. I mean, Garchomp could also be useful for the Earthquake, but I'm not sure how much stock I want to put it back to. Arcanine, Lele, Celesteela and Snorlax. I'm going to not bring Garchomp here because Porygon 2 can still threaten it with Ice Beam. And the Gastrodon most likely will also have Ice Beam on it. So once it gets under Trick Room, Garchomp won't be providing as much support as, say, the Celesteela would be. But we see my opponent lead out with the Tapu Lele and Gastrodon as we lead out with Arcanine and Tapu Lele ourselves. So we actually see that my opponent's Tapu Lele is actually very fast, outspeeding both the Arcanine and our own Tapu Lele, which is something to consider. That does concern me a bit. I want to try and preserve my Arcanine as best I can for this upcoming turns. The Gastrodon is going to be a bit of a problem for me to deal with, so I am just going to straight away Shattered Psyche into it. Whether I pick up the knockout, I'm not 100% sure, but we should be dealing significant damage to it. Tapu Lele just opts to go for a Moonblast into our Tapu Lele. Does just around half. So I don't think that's Specs, but it could be Scarfed. Let's see how much we do with the Shattered Psyche. If we can get take the Gastrodon down, we'll be in a good spot, I think. Yep, so the Gastrodon does faint there. So a very quick knockout there. And we potentially got the Tapu Lele locked into a Moonblast situation, so we might be able to do some working around, but we do see that my opponent brings out their own Arcanine. So perhaps, in hindsight, Garchomp would have been a better option to bring to the table. Best way we can find out, I think, is if we Flare Blitz into the Tapu Lele and protect with our Tapu Lele. The safe option would be that the Arcanine on their end would Flare Blitz into our Lele. It's actually a double target. So what's our Arcanine is faster than theirs. Okay. So I do get the impression that their Tapu Lele now is Scarfed. So we see a Snarl. Interesting. Terribly helpful for them, but probably trying to just secure that last little bit of damage that Tapu Lele. But that makes this next turn very free. We can continue to Flare Blitz into the Lele, and if they're snarling, I'm quite happy for the Celesteela to come in here. Or do I want the... Yeah, I want the Celesteela to come in here. Tapu Lele is still going for the Moonblast. Is this onto the Celesteela? Yes, it is. Won't be doing too... still doing a lot of damage there. Arcanine does use Flare Blitz. May not pick up the knockout here. I'm hoping it will. Critical hit does help us out there a little. It would have probably been either a very close roll, but we also see that the Arcanine goes for Flamethrower into our Celesteela. So this is a specially orientated Arcanine. Very interesting set indeed. Which does... And we see Kartana. Yeah, I still think the best play here is to just Flare Blitz into Kartana. I think we can also protect the Celesteela for this turn here. I imagine that the Kartana will just want to Sacred Sword into the Arcanine. It might actually proc our Berry straight away. Not quite, but Flare Blitz will go off. Should bring it down to a Focus Sash. Yes, indeed it will. We just survive. Get the Mego Berry, and we see that the Arcanine uses Flamethrower actually into the Arcanine here. So clever play from my opponent there, not targeting the Celesteela. Obviously, understanding that it is a potentially big win con for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch Tapu Lele in on the Arcanine. It's shown that it's going to Sacred Sword into the Arcanine come what may. And I wouldn't be too disappointed if we manage to get a Flamethrower off into the Kartana. I imagine that the Arcanine will now just switch its target back to the Celesteela. Kartana will probably Sacred Sword, as we do see. But that's not going to be doing too much damage at all. Arcanine does use Flamethrower. Will knock out our Celesteela here, most likely. Yep. We do see the weirdness disappear from the battlefield. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Snorlax here. And there's a couple of ways I can go about this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch Arcanine now into the Tapu Lele slot. And I am just going to... facade the Kartana here. Snorlax's bulk should mean that the Arcanine isn't able to do nearly enough damage to the Snorlax, and even with the Sacred Sword, I think because of the Intimidate drop, Snorlax should be able to proc its Berry either immediately after the first Sacred Sword or after the Flamethrower that the Arcanine might use. We do see it just go for a Smart Strike into our Arcanine. As you can see, not doing too much damage. Arcanine choosing to Flamethrower into the Snorlax. Wouldn't be too disappointed if it also got a burn there. So we do knock out the Kartana, and now it is just a 3v1 against this Arcanine. And what I can now start to do is I can Snarl and I can Curse at the same time. Basically, it's shown that it's a special Arcanine, so with repeated Snarls it won't be doing too much damage, but our opponent chooses to forfeit there. So, in hindsight, the Garchomp could have been a very useful Pokemon for us to bring over, say, the Celesteela, which didn't do all that much, just basically became a sacrifice for bringing something in on a free switch. which did help in the late game in order to start cycling around our Pokemon as necessary. Had we had Garchomp, we probably would have been in a much stronger position at the end game. But that being said, getting rid of the Gastrodon very early with the Shattered Psyche was imperative, and we managed to ascertain quite quickly that their Lele was quite a fast variant, because it outsped both our Arcanine and the opposing Arcanine on their side of the field. So it gave us a bit of an inkling that it might have been Scarfed or potentially Specs, but looking at the damage output, it didn't look like it was a very invested set, so my money would have been on Scarf there. So 20 minutes in, we've had 2 battles. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it there, guys. So it is a rather short episode today, 2 very quick wins, but obviously we can see that this team does have the synergy to go play defensively and offensively very, very interchangeably. There's obviously the fast mode, the slow mode. You have to play the percentages game, but with that in mind, I've got to say thank you to Lee. This team is absolutely brilliant to play with. It's one of the best teams that I've actually played with this season in terms of consistency's sake, and I'm really excited about how it goes further on. I'm actually really excited to see what sort of changes that Lee might make to this team as he goes forward. So, as I said again, guys, do go check out Lee's YouTube channel. Click the link in the description below that I'm going to be providing. But until Sunday, guys, I will see you then with another episode of the Battle Spot Factory. So until then, goodbye for now.